Hello everyone, my name is Mila and I'm a teacher and co-founder in Studio. I'm also a PhD student and recently I've done a very deep research on different studies about Bulgarian language as second language, as foreign language, and of course I want to share everything with you because there are some things you need to know when you study Bulgarian. So I was doing this study in the library, and then I decided to add all the research I found interesting and quality research in the Note LM application. So the application could make a very specific video about everything that I wanted to tell you. So finally, the app did a review only of one study, probably the most quality one, and this is what I'm going to share with you. Enjoy.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating linguistic mystery. We often just assume that knowing one language makes learning a closely related one a total breeze, right? Well, we call this the false sibling analogy. And today, we're going to completely shatter that myth by looking at the surprisingly tricky relationship between Russian, Czech, and Bulgarian.
So, here's the big question. If two languages are practically siblings, why do they trip us up so badly? This paradox basically sets the stage for our entire explainer. You've got native speakers of Russian and Czech stepping into a Bulgarian language classroom expecting a smooth, easy ride. I mean, they're all part of the Slavic language family, right? But almost immediately, they stumble. So, why on earth does their linguistic intuition fail them so spectacularly?
Section 1. This sister language trap. Let's get right into it.
To really understand this trap we just mentioned, we got to look at a concept defined by the famous linguist Uriel Weinrich. He said, and I quote, "These cases of deviations from the norms of either language, which appear in the speech of bilinguals as a result of them knowing more than one language, we will call the phenomenon of interference." Now, this concept of interference is the absolute beating heart of a comprehensive study by researcher Katrin Kostova at Sofia University. And her hard data is going to form the backbone of what we explore today.
Okay, so what does this actually mean for you as a student? Well, linguistic interference is what happens when the deeply ingrained rules of your native language actively disrupt and, frankly, sabotage your ability to use a new, related language correctly. To put it super simply, it's like trying to wear your siblings' clothes and they just do not fit. You think you know exactly how a sentence should be structured because it feels completely natural in your mother tongue, but in the sister language, it's just entirely wrong.
Section 2. What is linguistic interference? Let's take a closer look. Check out the stark grammatical contrast here. Over in Russian and Czech, there are absolutely no definite articles. There's literally no direct equivalent to the English word the. You just say the noun and move on. But Bulgarian is a total outlier among its Slavic sisters because there, definite articles are strictly required. This highlights a massive, glaring blind spot, the intuitive desire of a Russian or Czech speaker to just skip the article entirely, violently clashing with what Bulgarian actually demands.
Section 3. Surveying the grammatical chaos.
84. That is the exact number of university students aged 18 to 36 who jumped in and participated in this comprehensive language survey. Now, these were students actively engaged in learning Bulgarian as a foreign language, which honestly provided the absolute perfect real-world testing ground for this whole interference theory.
And the sample was an almost perfect split, too. We're talking 43 Czech native speakers and 41 Russian native speakers. This beautifully balanced demographic, studying across universities in Brno, Prague, and Sofia, allows us to compare exactly how two very different linguistic backgrounds collide head-on with the strict rules of Bulgarian.
So before diving into the actual tests, the researchers laid out what they called the noun trap hypothesis. They basically suspected a few specific battlegrounds for these students: major struggles with definite articles, gnarly errors in orthography and form creation, issues with number and gender agreement, and some potential confusion with degrees of comparison. Basically, they figured that anywhere the languages looked similar but behaved differently was a suspected trap.
Section 4. The survey results. Let's see what the data actually says.
All right, if you look closely at the shape of these error trend lines, something incredibly fascinating emerges. The peaks and valleys, they are almost identical. It's wild. Despite coming from entirely different native languages, the error patterns for both Czech and Russian speakers learning Bulgarian are strikingly aligned. They're quite literally falling into the exact same traps at the exact same rates.
And here we have the biggest trap of all. Let's call it the definiteness disaster. A staggering 55% of the errors made by Russian speakers and 42% by Czech speakers all involved those pesky definite articles. The brains just weren't wired to look for or apply those rules, making it the absolute dominant hurdle. Seriously, if you've ever tried to learn a language with totally foreign article rules, you know exactly how frustrating this feels.
But hey, it's not all bad news. When it came to degrees of comparison, the error rate completely plummeted to near 0% for both groups. 0! This brilliantly illustrates a really vital counterpoint. When the sibling languages actually do align in their grammatical structure, the learning process is virtually effortless. The positive transfer from their native language takes over, proving that being a sibling language isn't always a trap. Sometimes it's a massive, time-saving shortcut.
Section 5. Overcoming the confusion.
Now, as an educator, you can't just look at a student and say, hey, don't do that. You actually have to retrain their deepest linguistic instincts. The study proposes some really specific pedagogical solutions to defeat this interference. We're talking about utilizing targeted matching exercises for tricky noun groups and creating custom grammatical homonym and paronym dictionaries so students can see those sneaky false friends side by side. It also involves explicitly extracting and practicing the general rules for definiteness, and even utilizing visual memory games. By using these highly structured models, educators can actively rewire the learner's brain to bypass that false sibling trap entirely. Which brings us to a rather profound final thought. If our native language secretly shapes how we learn a related one, acting as both our greatest asset and our biggest saboteur, how much of our new language is really just an echo of the old? I'm going to leave you with that thought on the mechanics of the human brain today, hoping it inspires you to look a little closer at the hidden forces guiding how we learn, communicate, and connect. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Until next time, keep exploring and keep questioning the structures of the world around you.